All right, I think I've got my stuff working again. So I want to talk about how to steal an SSH password. Now, I'm using a cloud machine, so I'm controlling it by SSH. So I don't want to mess with the actual port 22 SSH traffic that is giving me control of it. What I want to do is start, and on top of that, there's another issue, which is by default, it does not allow password-based authentication. It's using certificate authentication, which is normal for cloud machines. But in this project, I want to run SSH with a password and then show you how to steal the password. So I'm just going to make a second copy of SSH running on the machine from a different configuration file. So first I create a test user named Waldo, which I've already done here with a password that I chose. And now I install strace, which I think I've already done on this machine. Yeah, good. And strace lets you see the system calls that a binary uses. Now this, I was very interested when I saw this in the talk this morning, because I did this years ago to steal SSH passwords from brute force attacks. And the only way I knew how to do it there was to get the actual source code for SSH and modify the source code to capture the passwords and write them to a file and then recompile it and run it. And of course that works, but that's the hard way. This is the easy way. So now I run a second SSH server. I've made a second configuration file. The default SSHD config is over here in SSH, but I made a copy of it locally so I could change it. And then because I'm just a slob, I made it read-writable by everybody so I didn't have to worry about who owned it. And so I made this file, which is SSHD config there. And if I look at it, it has I have turned on a couple of features here. I turned off public key authentication, so it's not attempting to authenticate with cryptographic keys, and I just turned on password authentication someplace. Yep, password authentication, yes. Those are the changes I made in this file. And then I want to run it on a different port so I don't interfere with my original SSHD. So this is what I do, just sudo run SSHD from that file on port 2222. And then I put it in the background with the ampersand sign. So it will give me another command prompt and let me keep using my service. So I can keep using this command prompt. It's running in the background with process 5645. And so I can detect it with socket state. LTNP will show me the listening processes, and see, there it is. It's listening on port 2222, it's SSHD, and there's its PID, 5646, which shouldn't, it's one higher than this. Anyway, so it's listening. Now people can SSH into my server. Now, in order to catch it, I have to, right now, there's a listening process, but there isn't a process that's going to contain a password yet. In order to get that, I have to connect from another machine. So I go to another machine and I connect to it. Let me shove these things on my screen. Okay, so I'm going to SSH in as my username Waldo to port 2222 from this other machine. Now, when I do that, it's going to ask me for a password. And if it was the first time, it would ask me, is it okay to connect to this unknown host? So now, if I look at the processes that are running and that have SSH in their name here, what happened is the Waldo user has now come in as a new process here, a couple of new processes, and the one I care about is Waldo private. A new process has launched. This is what Waldo is using to log in, and I want to monitor the system calls of that process. So I use strace. And if I just let it go to the screen, it's going to scroll off the screen, and scrolling back doesn't work too well on this cloud machine. So I need to give it the right process number, which is this one, 5672. And then I need to take the error output and put it in a file like foo. That's the simple way to do it. So now it is keeping track of all the system calls that the SSH daemon makes and putting that in a file. Now I log in. And now I'm done. Notice I moved from machine Debian 10B to the machine Debian 10A. And it's changed from CNET 123 to Waldo. So my SSH succeeded. Now I'm going to exit. That's going to terminate the process, and that will stop this strace. Now I can look in that foo file, and right here in the 4th line is my secret password. It did a system call to the read command, and it shows you what it read. It picked it up with strace, which is pretty awesome. So anyway, I thought that was pretty exciting when I saw someone showed us that in the talk, and I wrote it up. So you can do that and find a flag, and that's a good, fun trick to know about. All right, I'm going to stop this one.